Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Great to have you in. Midweek edition. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. We will dive into the Husker Reddit poll that is out there. Some pretty good percentages put on who you have faith Nebraska can beat. Some of those games you're not so excited about. The art of swearing, because, well, that's one thing a lot of coaches are good at. We'll dive into it with the Pirate himself in 1 hour. Mike Leach, Mississippi State, will sit down with this. The Pirate will join us on Hail Varsity Radio. This hour, Mike Babcock going to be with us from Hail Varsity. Get some football thoughts from Babbers. Historian, author, Hall of Famer with Hail Varsity, Mike Babcock. And then our golf guy. We love him, Mike Shoehart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Talk some football and golf with Shuey. Shuey's as big a Nebraska fan as there is, and get his take on the upcoming season. Numbers to dial up. Get involved with us here on Hail Varsity at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com and give us a follow on Twitter. At Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, that's me. That's my Twitter. Elijah Herbel, at Herbal Essence for Elijah. Follow him on Twitter. Follow Hail Varsity. And then, yes, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter is, well, it's about a week old. But you can follow all show updates and some of the 2-minute drill SoundCloud stuff there at H Varsity Radio. I got it right, man. I even had to... You know how sometimes you're a kid, you put some, well, not me, but a guy I knew would in ink write on his arm if there was a tough test to take. I haven't quite gone there yet, but I almost need to with the radio Twitter.
Are you talking like cheating with the writing it in?
No, it was practice.
Okay. But I was saying my cheating method of choice on those math tests, those hard ones you didn't know, was... You would just go write out a list of
hiring somebody to take it for you. No.
All you would do is some people would have their calculator covers on their math test. And they'd write in there, bad plan, great way to get caught. Best way to do it, go and write your formulas out in the calculator and then shut your calculator off. Because once you turn it on, it'll still be the first thing you can see up there. So then undo your calculator, turn it on, boom, there's all your formulas, and write them at the top of your tests. No one's going to get mad at you for memorizing some formulas and writing them down. But the hard part's memorizing it, so you just write it down in the calculator, and boom, you got all your formulas there.
Well, we've got to find that perfect formula for 2022 with Nebraska. Let's get into it. And also, we'll remember Vin Scully, and a lot of us had got into this medium. We were inspired because of what voices we heard growing up, not in our own heads, mind you, but those voices on the radio or TV, those flashbulb moments in sports that still stick with you. And, thanks to YouTube TV. And I remember watching the 86 World Series, and I was cheering for Boston because I liked Roger Clemens. And I remember this moment with Buckner, and who hasn't heard it, seen it if you're younger, it lives in infamy, and Bill Buckner passed away a couple, 3 years ago. But, man, he was a damn fine baseball player, but this is what he's remembered for, and this was Scully on the call.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. Improbable. What was hilarious, though, is somebody synced this up on YouTube with the old original Nintendo RBI baseball. And it was Mookie batting, and he had a little dribbler
in the infancy of graphics and video games that went by the first baseman, and it was synced up perfectly with that play. But Vin Scully, incredible, the pride of Fordham. He was just masterful at what he did. Not a huge Dodger fan, but I loved Jackie Robinson and that era of baseball. And Vin's time with Brooklyn and then to L.A. was fantastic. Such a gentleman, such an ambassador, and even a guy that branched out from baseball to the Masters, to the catch by Dwight Clark from Joe Montana against Ed Too Tall Jones and the Cowboys. But as a kid growing up, you have the Oakland A's. You have the 1990s Oakland A's. Canseco, McGuire, Ricky Henderson, Eckersley, Dave Stewart, loved them. And this was my heartbreak with Kirk Gibson coming to the plate and delivering against the Eck. This was voted most iconic baseball call of all time.
But the game right now is at the plate. High fly ball into right field. She is gone! In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
He let that thing go for 60 seconds of crazed Dodger fans. And some of us may have thrown a remote and went to our bedroom crying with, it was just game one, but it was done. You had wounded Gibby come up and deliver it, and boy, did Vin do it. So thank you, Vin Scully, for a life well lived and inspirations to thousands.
It was the way he used his words as a paintbrush. Somebody said that on Twitter last night, and that's the perfect way to put Vin Scully's career behind the mic. Is he used his words like a paintbrush, and never once in the big moment did it seem like he didn't have the perfect thing to say, the perfect way of describing the game, describing the moment in a way that was really a work of art. That's what made Vin Scully so special to me.
And he was never forcing it to be about him.
Mm-hmm.
He was so he hit all the right notes with it. And let's talk painting. Let's get into what type of work of art Nebraska's 2022 season could be. And I don't know if it's going to be graffiti art. I don't know if it's going to be classical art that's priceless. I don't know if it's Andy Warhol, but you'll put some sort of price tag on it. And this Reddit poll's pretty good with Nebraska. And Economy Pie is who put this out there on Reddit.
Yes, that's the username. So shout out to Economy Pie for putting this together.
So what you have here is Husker Reddit going to town here on Nebraska, and percentages attached. Husker fans jumped on, logged on, clicked on, and you've got two columns, the oh no and oh yes. And the oh yes is there's a 87% voter turnout for Nebraska to beat Northwestern. That's the feeling as of yesterday. Right around the 90s for Rutgers and Indiana. Almost at 100% Georgia Southern, North Dakota, and for some reason 9 out of 10 voting in this Reddit poll say Nebraska will beat Illinois. They should. They haven't. Okay? The oh no, 50% or below, Oklahoma at 26%, Purdue at 43%, Minnesota right there at 51%. 5% say Michigan is winnable, and then Wisconsin's all the way down to 22%. Iowa's at 47%. 6 out of 10 say Nebraska's going bowling. 2 out of 10 say Nebraska can win the West. Let's dive into this. So I have it broken down into the schedule, the month, and like best case scenario. Best case scenario is 4-0 for Nebraska in November. It really just depends on, to me, what happens 23 days from now. Are you going to get a win in Ireland? Is that make or break? And I think from a doom and gloom standpoint, they don't come back from Ireland without a win. I don't care how it looks. I don't care if it's a field goal. I don't care if Northwestern self-destructs. Do you escape the island 1-0? Because Nebraska's not been 1-0 in 1,000 years in the Big Ten. It doesn't feel like. You get to 1-0, you get some confidence. You get some confidence, maybe you do superhuman things. You play over your skis. Or you just play better football. But Ireland's all of it. Now, say they get weird against Northwestern, Elijah. It's not lost. You're going to need a save-the-season type win in ball game. And that still comes in September in the form of Oklahoma. But it's hard for me to do the math. If you lose to Northwestern, what are your chances of beating Oklahoma? You can get better. You can improve as the year goes on. That happens a lot in college football. But a lot of times by game 3 or 4, you are what you're going to be, at least offensively. And maybe a little room for improvement. But I see Nebraska at 3-1 in September. I see Nebraska. I look at October, and on paper, they shouldn't lose to anybody. They shouldn't lose to Purdue, even though Purdue's a dark horse or a dangerous team. You shouldn't lose at Rutgers, but Friday night could be weird in Jersey. Indiana got you last time they were here somehow. And then there's Illinois, who you've not played well against since the Tommy Armstrong era, to be frank, or at least 2018. November, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa. Got to go 2-2 and finish 2-2. And things are okay. I think if you're a Nebraska fan and they're 6-2 going into November, and they finish 2-2, I think you can take that and put it in your back pocket from a momentum standpoint and feel all right. You should beat Minnesota, and you got to split with Iowa or Wisconsin and go play well against Michigan. We're getting way the hell ahead of ourselves, but pretty good Reddit poll here, and you know where the Nebraska fan base is at based on the percentages, based on the clicks.
And it starts with week 1 against Northwestern. When was the last time Nebraska got momentum rolling early in their season? I don't think it's happened once in the Scott Frost era.
Never.
I think you have to go back to maybe that first year under Mike Riley, where you can say Nebraska got some momentum going, and with that momentum, they were able to play above their level just a little bit for a couple weeks. And, I mean, Scott Frost, the only time he's won his opening game at Nebraska was against South Alabama. And if you remember anything about that game, that was a nervous game to watch.
Adrian was just not easy to watch that game.
Yeah, you needed a pick 6 from Eric Lee, I believe, as well as a J.D. Spielman punt return to go win that game, which you won by 2 scores. And then you followed up the next week by going to Boulder and laying the fourth quarter egg of all fourth quarter eggs.
There was not, brother, we were out there for that. You were part of it, and there was not any beer left because you go from drinking to celebrate Nebraska fans to, oh, God, it's in overtime. Then it's, oh, no, there's this field goal they've got to hit that's horrific from a distance standpoint to tie it and force a second overtime, to everyone popping the old red balloon in Boulder. And then it never got right after that.
Well, you had a couple of wins against some bad teams after that, and then Ohio State came to town and put a beat down on you, and that killed any hope of momentum that you would have, and you went on to lose 5 of your next 6.
Ken emails in Chris@HailVarsity.com, and I love Kent's snarkiness. He says Akron was Frost's best opener.
Hey, that stadium was electric for 10 minutes.
Yeah. The good old Terry Bowden's like, yeah, I'm just going to take our check and go.
But think about how important, say, Nebraska going in and beating Northwestern by 14 points would be in Dublin, just in the grand scheme of a season. If Nebraska can go pull that off, the momentum it would lead you into, because I don't think if Nebraska can do that against Northwestern, I don't think anyone thinks Nebraska is going to lose either of their next 2 games. So then it has momentum. You have confidence going into a big matchup against Oklahoma, who, oh yeah, has a new head coach this season, and a lot of people in the national media are just waiting for something to go wrong at that Oklahoma season this year. Under a new head coach with new talent, a new quarterback, you have no idea what you're going to do.
Rated talent. I mean, that talent, like what OU is supposed to be, has either been lost to the NFL or they're out in SoCal.
So if you have a confident Nebraska team going up against an Oklahoma team who, I mean, with everyone saying you're just waiting for something to go wrong, are they as a team going to be waiting for something to go wrong? I mean, the implications of a successful Nebraska trip out to Dublin on this season, I don't think it can be understated how huge it is. Because on the flip side of things, if you lose that game against Northwestern, there could be no coming back for Scott Frost. He would have 4 games to be able to flip the script and let the administration know, you know what, no, when my buyout drops on October 1st, you should not be firing me. I mean, it'd be hard to come back from that from Scott Frost if you lose in Dublin. So the magnitude of that game, I don't think can be understated.
No, the toxicity is very real post Northwestern. And what's mood, what's feel, what's pressure, what's climate, all of that. And that's where your mind's at as a Nebraska fan. You can't have a Illinois repeat. And to be fair, Nebraska's not had the easiest of roads. You got to plow through it. You got to figure it out anyway. But Nebraska's not had the easiest of roads from the conference, and you need to be better. They took you in from the Big 12 because of your brand and the eyeballs. You need to start living up to being what Nebraska used to be on the football field, challenging for some wins. But it's been difficult, and this isn't an easy task either. Most of these guys never been out of the country for a football game, or for sure on a bowl-like setup, because they've not been to a bowl game. We'll get thoughts from Mike Babcock. He's next. Mike Leach, the Pirate, 40 minutes away. It's Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, Storm Chasers fans, a 6-game homestand against St. Paul is upcoming, and it all begins on August 2nd. That night is free on the green, which means free berm tickets if you show your FNBO card. The following night is library night, and we're whispering because you can't talk loud in the library, which is why I avoid libraries. Dollar Beer Night is August 4th, and that's also Military Appreciation Night, 2 of my favorite things. You'll see patriotic jerseys and a whole lot of Budweiser. Nothing more American than that. The weekend slate includes fireworks on Friday night, camo jerseys with an in-game jersey auction on Saturday, and a family fun day on Sunday, which includes Bark in the Park, canned food for tickets, and kids running the bases after the game. Get your tickets now before it's too late. We'll see you soon.
And we're back.
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for spending time. Hail Varsity Radio on a Wednesday, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're streaming here on ESPN Lincoln's Facebook and Twitter. And we welcome in historian, author, Hall of Famer, Mr. Husker Football, Mike Babcock, with us at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, what do you know as we see you at your home football headquarters? What's going on?
Well, I was interested in what you were saying about Vin Scully, because I'm not a Dodger fan in any way, shape, or form. But a few years ago, when I first started subscribing to MLB.com, two reasons I did it. One, I wanted to see all my Giants games, big Giants fan. And 2, I wanted to watch Dodger games because I like listening to Vin Scully. And I'm not making that up. I really did enjoy that. And that was part of the reason that I subscribed to it, just because you could get him on the Dodger games.
Vin's so good, a Giant fan bought a subscription to the MLB Network just so you could hear the soothing tones.
In part to do that, yes.
And you were going to see a lot of Giant games with the Dodgers, the rivalry of all rivalries.
Yeah, you can double up. Now, the Giants this year have not been in very competitive mode, so wouldn't have mattered anyway. I don't watch the Dodgers because I got no Vin Scully now.
No.
So.
That makes sense. Vin, one of the best, and sports fans, be it a Nebraska football fan or MLB fan like yourself with the Giants, or just growing up. I mean, there's that tie and that passion that sports has, and pulls the heartstrings, the emotion that goes into it. And I look at this season with Nebraska, and Mike, interested to get your thoughts as we're in the infancy of camp right now. But, just from a vibe standpoint, I have really honed in on Coach Chenander. Not necessarily Coach Frost, but very interested in the defense, the heavy lifting that'll be needed again from their side of the football. And what did they get your take on the comfort level right now with the defense that they're having to replace some key pieces? But man, it sounds like they're pretty high on the depth they have and the talent in that area.
Yeah, the transfer portal really has helped Nebraska, I think, on defense because they lost guys, but they brought in some guys that I think can have an immediate impact on the defense. And you need that, especially up front, because of the losses that you had. But, yeah, I think, the one thing that, I say this every time, but we kind of have to temper the enthusiasm a little bit because it's the same way everywhere. I remember at Big Ten Media Days, Trev Albert said, something to the same effect, that at this time of year, everybody is excited.
Everyone's undefeated.
What's going to happen? But, having said that, you're right, though. There's some talent that I think has transferred in, and there's some guys that are coming back. There's a lot of competition in the secondary, obviously. What they want to do there, I like that if they carry through with what Travis Fisher said. I like the fact that they might be using multiple defensive backs, working guys in there if they can, because I think that's a really good way to approach things. If you can keep guys fresh, and in the secondary, obviously you're doing a lot of running, a lot of moving around, a lot of trying to coverage on guys. So if you can have multiple guys in there that you're comfortable with, I think that's a positive. I think the same thing, Barrett Root has talked about, well, maybe last year Reimer and Henrich were in there a little bit too much, but we needed them in there. You need to get some more linebackers involved in that situation. Same way with the outside linebackers. It's just a numbers thing. You can't just be scratching to get a starter out there. If you're in that position, it's going to be difficult for you. But if you're feeling like you've got a couple of guys at a position that you're comfortable with, and I'm not just talking about defense, I'm talking about offense as well. I think that speaks well for where you're at. And if that's where they truly are, if that's what we're going to see when the season gets underway, then you got to feel good about it.
Mike Babcock's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Mike, what is your barometer for success going to be for this defense here in 2022? I think people were encouraged last season that the scoring was down. It didn't feel like any Big Ten team could just run the ball down Nebraska's throat at will. And there was, I guess, signs of encouragement there. But what's your barometer going to be here in 2022? Some people are going to look at scoring defense and say, how many points a game does this team allow? Others are going to look at the fact that the 3-and-out rate. How often are you getting 3-and-outs, getting your offense back on the field? And I think there's another group of people that are going to say, well, the turnover is what's important for this defense. That's what Chinander's defense was billed as being when he came to Nebraska. It's a defense that's going to take away the ball and give the offense more opportunities. What are you going to be looking at in order to say, yeah, this defense is successful, or no, this defense isn't successful in 2022?
Well, first off, you got to be able to stop the run. I think that's in the Big Ten. You got to be able to do that. And I like your observation about pressure. You got to get pressure on the opposing quarterback, and you got to create turnovers. That's something that hurt Nebraska in some situations last year. You've got to do that on defense. I think they have the capability of doing that, but do they do it once the real stuff starts going? Can they accomplish those kind of things? And again, they've brought in some guys that can facilitate that, I think. Coupled with great leadership from Garrett Nelson. I mean, you can't underscore that enough. He's a tremendous leader, I think, and he's gotten better each year, so that there's high expectations for him as a player on the field, and some of those expectations relate to forcing turnovers, creating pressure on the opposing quarterback, which is what you need.
Mike Babcock's with us, HailVarsity.com, Hail Varsity Magazine at MD Babs, where you follow him on Twitter. Babbers, you had a chance to spend a couple of minutes with Ty Robinson. Do you like the look? I mean, the old shaved head, brother.
Yeah, I was impressed with, I talked about Garrett Nelson in leadership, but I think that Ty Robinson he called himself a henchman, and he's kind of the enforcer type guy or whatever. But I was really impressed with him. He's very articulate, and I think he has a good sense of what has to happen and how you can integrate transfers into the system in a way that's going to be effective for Nebraska. So, yeah, I was really impressed with him. I hadn't talked to him before that, and I stuck around for almost the whole thing, just because he was so engaging, I thought. And that speaks well, I think, for what they have in terms of leadership on the defensive line. Him and Garrett Nelson, I think you've got the upfront guys. You've got good leadership there, guys that set an example first of all. But you can't just set an example. I think you have to go to people when you feel like they're not getting the job done. You've got to be comfortable talking to other people and carrying them along there, and they've got to be comfortable with being told how things need to be done if they're not doing it right.
And Mikey, you talk about that leadership aspect. I think Nebraska's got a couple great ones up front. Garrett Nelson, Ty Robinson, as you mentioned, and even the linebackers I feel good about. But I'm still not sure who's going to step up and be a leader in that defensive backroom, because they had a couple last season, and Deontay Williams, Cam Taylor-Britt. I mean, they just had guys that you felt confident in that back end, not only in their playing ability, but in their ability to do things the right way and lead that defense in the right way. Do you worry about leadership within the secondary here in 2022?
No, I think one thing that you can feel good about in the secondary is I think Quentin Newsome has really become more comfortable in that kind of role, take that kind of responsibility. He's much more comfortable, I think, around reporters, and I think that can transfer into the secondary and the kind of leadership. So I think it starts with him, and so I'm going to say no. I'm not concerned about that, because you have a guy that has experience and is comfortable and is willing to take that responsibility, which he's indicated. So I think you've got good direction there. I think Travis Fisher's really does a good job. So no, I'm not concerned. The concern is maybe you're a little light on experience on guys that have been on the field long enough to really feel like they fit in.
Babbers, a thought here before we say goodbye on Whipple, the quarterbacks, and the overall picture on offense. So far, so good. I appreciate the straightforwardness from Whipple, and I think they're going to be able to put those guys in position to do some pretty good things. And I think the Frost Whipple marriage could be okay. I'm a little concerned going in, but Whipple's seen about everything.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when Scott Frost talked about how it was going to be he wasn't really stepping away from the offense, and that they were going to work together and do some kind of things. But me, for me, it all starts with the guys up front. Can the offensive line get the job done? And from what I expect of the guys coming back, even though losing Nori this year, that's going to be that's a little bit of an issue there, a little bit of a concern. But you've got a guy like Brock Bando, a 6-year guy that's stepping up. Trent Hickson, a 6-year guy. So you got leadership on the offensive line from 2 6-year guys that are not afraid to step up and be in that role. And how that all filters down, Corcoran and Prohaska didn't get through spring, but they're looking pretty good from what everybody says now. So I feel good about the potential in the offensive line, and that's going to affect what's going to happen with whoever the quarterback is, Casey Thompson, and what gets accomplished there.
It's Mike Babcock with Hail Varsity. Babbers, about 20 seconds. What's coming up with you on Hail Varsity?
Well, we're getting ready. We're less than 2 weeks away from putting together the volleyball issue, and then it's right around to back to football issues, and of course, we're getting close to Ireland. So
bon voyage, man.
That's pretty exciting. But I'll see how you guys analyze it, and then say, yeah, that's what I think too. I agree with that.
No, you're the voice of reason. This is what needs to be said and how it happens. And Mike, we'll check in next week with you. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you. There he is, historian, author, Hall of Famer. Give Mike a follow on Twitter. Read him for sure with Hail Varsity at MD Babs. Little golf talk, some more football, and we're 25 minutes away from Mike Leach. The Pirate will join us at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
When you think of Union Omaha, what comes to mind? The high level of play, the inviting atmosphere, the amazing promotions, huh? I spoke to a former player, and when I asked for one thing that made playing for Union Omaha so special, he responded with the people, his teammates, the staff, and the fans. The super passionate, crazy, awesome fans, that is. Why am I bringing this up? Because I want to remind you that the people are just as important to the team as the team is to them. There are plenty of matches down the stretch, and we want to see you in the seats. Get your tickets now, before it's too late.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Follow us, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio, at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. Welcome in with Wilderness Ridge, Mike Shoehart. Shoey, you got the women's amateurs going on right now at Wilderness Ridge. How's the day?
It's been good. Exciting finish. So they finished up just a little bit ago. So got to watch some nice golf. Got to watch an exciting finish. Megan Whitaker ended up hanging on and getting her first title. So it was fun to watch.
That's awesome. Shuey, how many exciting finishes are you anticipating for Nebraska football?
I hope a lot, in the good way, the positive side. So, not on the negative side.
We're, as Nebraskans, I mean, the pendulum's got to swing back, right? I mean, you've had someone's put a smoky treat out on your palm too many times here in the Big Ten the last 3 years, right? I mean, it's supposed to go the other way. Not every year can you win close games or be over 500, but you got to get some of them, don't you?
You would think so. I mean, it just comes back to the same thing. It's like, can you not turn the ball over in a critical time, which you wouldn't think you're going to continue to do? And, can you not give up a punt return or some stupid penalty or something like that? It's just that they've found a way to lose so many games, so many bizarre ways that don't typically happen, and it's like sooner or later that's got to turn around. And you think you got a new quarterback that probably is going to manage the game better, you hope, and not create some of those things. You got focused on your special teams, so hopefully some of those things that have haunted you in the past, you'll be able to take care of. And just the odds, man, the odds of something in your favor going your way as opposed to always going against you, I mean, it's got to be about that time.
Well, Mike, let's put this in golf terms. What do you say to a golfer that they just bogeyed 17, now they're only one up as they step into the tee box on 18, and you can see it in their eyes, they're nervous, they're worried they're going to miss the fairway with this drive. What do you say to that golfer just to kind of try to take the pressure off and get them back to their game as opposed to feeling the pressure of the moment?
Well, most of it is, it's like you've done what you're being asked to do a million times. So it's like put yourself in a practice round or on the driving range hitting that exact shot. How many times have you hit that shot over and over and over again, just like what the golf course is asking you to do at this particular time? So it's like you got to think back into what it is that you already know how to do. You got to trust yourself in being able to do that and put yourself in a situation where, yeah, man, I've done this 50 times, 150 times, 2,050 times. So it's just getting back into the right frame of mind. So just like golf, football, it's like, what do you do when you practice? You practice this play, this scenario over and over and over, and you succeed somewhat in practice, I would hope, most of the time. So it's like, again, it all goes back into you got to trust yourself. You got to trust your training. You got to believe in it because it's done. You've done it. So it's like why and how you can believe in it, because you've already done it. You've done it over and over continuously.
Should we going to go to golf here? A thought from you on what the PGA's done in response to LIV, and that's they're going to pay out a record $428.6 million for the upcoming year. The purses are going up 22-23 season. You expected some sort of response. Is that enough of a response to keep from defections?
I don't know, man. Those defections are going to be hard, man. Those guys are getting crazy amounts of money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw a stat the other day where a guy finished like 41st, dead last, and he made as much money as Tony Finau did for winning the event. So it's like, when you're paying out that kind of money and you don't even have to perform, I mean, it's hard for guys to turn that down, you know. So, yeah, it's going to help. I mean, anytime you start raising the stakes, you know, it helps their position a little bit. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting down the stretch. What's going to happen? You know, there's more and more guys that are talking about going there, are going there. I mean, they just got Bubba Watson, another Masters champ. To still go back to the same thing. It's like they get all these guys that are Masters winners that are exempt into the Masters. You know, what's the Masters going to do when it comes time to that tournament for all these LIV guys that aren't eligible to really play in the Masters because they don't meet the criteria anymore? What are they going to do? So it's going to be interesting. That's a crazy amount of money they're throwing around.
Put your lawyer hat on for a moment. You've got Phil and 11 from LIV also filing suit against the PGA Tour. Phil and Bryson, they filed an antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour. They're filing, at least three of them, to gain entry into the FedEx Cup playoffs. Going to depend on the old judge draw, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you never want to go that route because you never know what's going to happen. But it's like, man, I don't know. To me, that's like, you can't have it both ways. You got to have it one way or the other. You know, and these guys are trying to get it both ways. You know, they want to go over there and play, but they also want to come over here and play. And it's like, the PGA Tour is a PGA Tour. It's like they have rules and regulations on how and why you can be a member. You can't just pick and choose wherever you want. I mean, they're a business. They have to run a business, so there's certain criteria you have to meet, you know, to be a member of that. You can't just play when you want and not when you want. So it's like, I don't get it.
Mike, now that we're a couple months in.
Very disrespectful to me.
But, Mike, now that we're a couple months into this whole LIV experiment, with about a minute left here, do you worry that this is lowering the quality of golf that we get to watch on TV on the weekends? I mean, the initial thought was maybe no, not really. We're still going to get high-level golf. But now that we've seen a couple months, do you think that's what we're seeing?
I do. I mean, because it's like, what do they really have to play for? They already have their money, you know, so it's like they already have these guarantees of what they're getting paid. So it's like, where's their incentive to go out there and play? And what's the incentive to win the Saudi Arabia Open? You know, it's like, what is that? You know, to me, there's an incentive to win the Masters, you know, because it's winning the Masters, first of all, and it's a $2 million first place check, you know, so it's like, I don't know, so it diminishes the incentive to me a little bit for the players, you know, so it's like they really don't, you know, do they have to really care that much? Do they care that much? I don't know. Or do they just kind of go through more of the motion? So I see that, you know, I don't. It doesn't bring as much excitement to me.
Shoey, we will bump into you soon. I know Wilderness is thriving with the new aquatic center, and folks can contact Shoey and the great folks at Wilderness Ridge about membership and check it out, get a tour, and check out how incredible golf is at Wilderness Ridge. Shoey will check in next week, bud, and we'll get ready for football as we get closer to kickoff. All right?
I love it, man. You got to do a show from the Lazy River one of these days. I want to see you floating around the Lazy River.
Done. I will be there. I'll make sure I wear a shirt. Mike Shoehart's with us. Shoey, you take care, bud.
You too. Stay safe.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity Radio this hour. Next hour, we kick it off with the Pirate. Mike Leach will join us, get Coach's take on how the Bulldogs will be. We'll ask him about Ireland because he is a world traveler. And, I don't know, topic of swearing. It's always kind of fun and random. We check in with the Pirate, and that is happening next hour. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Give us a follow on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel, and then also Hail Varsity Radio's Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio on Twitter. Podcast, Elijah. We love putting the show up. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and a part of the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. So you miss us or you just catch a glimpse of us, be sure to check out the podcast. Individual interviews, that's posted different areas, Facebook, and on-demand ESPN Lincoln. So different ways to get what part of the show you want to hear.
And we're working with the video component a lot more, too. We've heard your messages. People chiming in saying, we want more of this video component. We want to see you guys actually doing the show, and we will oblige. So we're going to try to get more and more of those video-type segments out for you as well, and we'll work on restricting the nose picking, and we'll do our hair more as much as we can. Maybe even I'll start doing some makeup, start curling the mustache. Really get it looking nice.
Don't curl the stash, but your hair looks fine. I combed my hair today because I knew we were going to be on with Babbers, and we do the whatever we want to call it, with our dear friend St. Nick Handley and Austin up in Omaha at 3:30, 3:45 every day. So that's important. But yeah, check out the podcast, subscribe, do that. Roadshow reminder for our friends at Omaha. We are going to be in Omaha, going to be in La Vista at the Hail Varsity Club. We were there Monday. We will be back on Friday from 4 to 6. So listen, you've got time. You got to sneak out and do a little, FAC, happy hour fun. Come see us. Elijah and I'll be up in La Vista at the Hail Varsity Club, getting you ready for a weekend. Get some wings, get a beer, get a soda. If you're not into beer, get a vodka if you like vodka. But it's a great setup, so you're invited there.
And I mean, we're working on, there's going to be drink specials in the afternoons when we're up there. I believe happy hour while we're up there. And I want to get your take on this. If we get the chance to design our own cocktail, the Hail Varsity Radio cocktail, what are you throwing in there?
Vodka.
Vodka?
Vodka or some sort of bourbon, not together.
That'd be terrible.
We'll just call it the Saturday night. So I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty. There's a drink we partake over with our friend Bert and Timmy B. It is Irish whiskey and lemonade.
Okay, yeah.
We call it the Bailey. It's pretty good, but that's where I'm at with it. Are you gonna make something?
I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
I'm trying to. It's got to be some sort of whiskey drink.
Okay.
And 3 parts whiskey, 1 part water. Call it good.
Yep.
The Hail Varsity Blackout.
We'll just call it the Joe Papa.
That works too.
Yep, in honor of Dad. So, reminder to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes and mind straight ahead. The driver, one job, that's to drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Mike Leach, 10 minutes away at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Hey, it's Schmidt. Want to tell you about a fantastic opportunity to work for a rapidly growing company that also enjoys the benefits earned with having competitive, stable history of work over 20 years. FSC. The FSC Edge. It's a leading technology innovator serving governmental agencies. Expert services helping worldwide patent offices meet strict processing and publishing timelines while delivering exceptional quality. They support some of the world's largest patent offices throughout the U.S. and Europe. That includes the European Patent Office, the German Patent and Trademark Office, and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The only group of companies worldwide to provide such support to all three of these agencies. Working at FSC, you have a chance to work with fun people with great attitudes and learn about patents. You're not on the phone. You're not customer-facing. It's casual dress. And the work environment, it's a new environment with over $2 million in improvements. You have access to generous benefits packages, company support for health and wellness, and you do impactful work on a national scale. Make a difference. Their team's constantly growing, and they're always looking for new people to join their mission. Check out what's available today at jobs@fsc.com.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it at Tower 2 at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Getting ready for football season. We welcome in the Pirate coach, Mike Leach of Mississippi State. Coach, how we doing? How's the summer been treating you?
I'm doing good. It's been kind of a whirlwind summer. These summers get shorter and shorter. You enjoy the summer, but then you also certainly look forward to the season. One thing about summers nowadays is now that the kids are out of the house, you get a lot more freedom and you can do a lot more things. So that part's pretty fun. So I traveled kind of far and wide a little bit this summer, maybe not as much as I do sometimes. But I went to Panama, I went to Cartagena, Colombia, and then went back to, I'm from Wyoming, went back to Wyoming for the 4th of July, and then was in Florida quite a bit, and basically, had a pretty good summer, and could probably be talked into a couple more weeks, but certainly looking forward to football.
Well, week 0, we're headed over to Ireland. Do you want to go?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're talking to us some about that. What do you think about the Ireland deal?
I think I'm going to make sure myself is knocked out for an 18-hour flight. But other than that, I can't wait. We'll be broadcasting. We're not far. Nebraska's playing in the rugby stadium. I know you love rugby, and we're posting up at a pub about a bad punt away from the stadium. So we're all set to go, man. Have you been to Ireland?
Yeah, I have. I'd like to go more. Really nice town, really nice. A lot of little nice towns. Mm-hmm. Dublin's nice, but it's like it's still a city. Mm-hmm. I haven't been to Northern Ireland. I've literally been from Shannon, which is on the west coast, all the way around the coast and up to Dublin, which is on the east coast, which means I've kind of circumvented about the southern half of the country, and then the northern half, there's easily that much more again, and I haven't been on the interior at all.
Now, Coach, while you were there, did you kiss the Blarney Stone? It's according to legend, it gives the gift of gab. So, I mean, it kind of sounds up your alley.
I didn't kiss it. I sort of high-fived it. To be honest with you, now people do kiss it, and so there better be some magical properties in that Blarney Stone. Let me just say, okay, so it's a really cool castle. And it's a cool legend. It's not nearly as big a castle as you'd think, because Scotland and Ireland have some massive castles, and it's really not that big of a castle, and by castle standards. And it is it's literally a whole production. I mean, you go up there now. My wife and my daughter kissed it because they're doing everything you could think of for good luck, going into the season, no matter what it was. And my wife, who was a germ freak and a neat freak, her and my daughter both kissed the Blarney Stone. Okay, and I am not, I'll eat about anything, but no, I didn't see the sense of kissing the Blarney Stone really. But so what it is you walk up there, and it's on the wall. The Blarney Stone's kind of at the top, at the top of the wall, okay? And there will be an Irish dude there as you line up because you kind of lean backwards, almost like you're upside down when you kiss it, right? And so he leans you over, you kiss it, and there's another one to help you get your balance and get on the way. But it is like almost a conveyor belt of people, just boom, 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 boom. And at least when I was there, and I think it's like this a lot. I mean, me and like several hundred of my new best friends kissed that Blarney Stone within 20 minutes or so.
Mike Leach with us, coach at Mississippi State, the Pirate, joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, a thought on the season? How's the squad going to be? Excitement level here for another year at Mississippi State?
We're excited. We got a lot of the same faces back. It's like as far as the number of starts, we've got some experience. We're still not very old. I mean, I keep saying that, and we did get a year older from one year to the next, but we have very few seniors. We're predominantly a junior and sophomore team, but I do have a number of guys that have started since they were freshmen, and I think that's helpful as far as some experience, at least on the field.
What do you, in all your time with tutoring quarterbacks, I don't know if you do a survey of them or not, but what do you think they like doing most for you?
Oh, shoot, I don't know, throwing.
But I'm saying, is it the preparation? Is it the game plan? I mean, just where do they have the most fun with you, I guess is the better way to put it.
I think there's a point to where that meet and practice, I mean, both of those things get long, but you do kind of have moments of quality time with just sort of all the guys in the room, and then where you're trading war stories, laughing about something,
Who's the biggest character you've had as a quarterback?
Well, there's a bunch of those. Let me think here. All brilliant in their own right. Characters, as far as just real characters.
Just great personality. Make you laugh.
Well, as far as wild in that sort of sense, would be like B.J. Simmons, Gardner Minshew. Just kind of edgier guys, and both of them edgy, both of them fearless. I mean, utterly fearless. And no matter what they're doing, just all in,
Mike Leach with us, few minutes, Hail Varsity Radio. So Will Clark was down in Starkville. Had you connected with Will Clark before?
I've texted back and forth with him, and he just made it into the Hall of Fame, so I'm really thrilled about that.
Yeah, great.
And, growing up, I was a Will Clark fan. I was definitely a Will Clark fan. I wasn't really growing up. I think we're approximately the same age, but anyway, he might be a little. I don't know. We'd have to do the math, but. I was a big fan, there at the Giants because, I went to law school in L.A. and I was growing up. I was a kid that was more of a Yankees fan, so I hated the Dodgers, and so then, but I was right near Dodger Stadium, and I loved baseball, and I especially liked watching the Dodgers play the Padres, or in particular the Giants, and And so I definitely liked Will Clark. And Will Clark was just such an intense student of the game. And, you do it the right way. Even if you're an opponent or something, you don't hustle to a base, Will's going to let you know.
Sure.
And, no, I think just outstanding. Was great for baseball. And the way he was great is just completely committed. There was no gray area. Will was all in. And so, but he just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, so we're thrilled about that.
Coach, you mentioned growing up around Dodger Stadium, and today the legacy and the life of Vin Scully is on our mind. Do you have any memories of listening to Vin Scully call Dodger baseball games?
Well, I mean, I've got to say, I was kind of unfairly biased against the Dodgers, and so listening to Vin Scully could be quite painful to me. And rooting for them to lose when they were winning all the time was tough a little bit. And so, because I was at that time I was a Yankees fan, or first and foremost whatever team that Billy Martin managed. Okay, Billy Martin was my favorite guy. They said, I've even been asked who most inspired you to coach football, or what coaches do you look to. Occasionally they're surprised to hear, but maybe number one is Billy Martin. And I wish I would have gotten the opportunity to meet Billy Martin. I never did. But I know his son a little bit, but I always admired Billy Martin, and committed student of the game, no matter what, no matter how old he got. And then always felt like he could find a way. So I really liked that. Okay, so then you got the Dodgers. And then you got Vin Scully talking about getting products from Farmer John's, In L.A. there's, I guess it's like bacon and stuff. But, Vin always wants you to go to Farmer John's and get your stuff there, And, and everything was just so happy, click with the Dodgers. And I started watching the Angels. And to this, even now I'm a big Angels fan. The Angels converted me, and then I tend to follow managers. I like Don Mattingly so much as a player when he managed the Dodgers. Then, of course, I kind of made some exceptions. And so anyway, and I actually rooted for the Dodgers to make a recent World Series. But no, Vin Scully would just echo through your head. So if you're hating the Dodgers and you're in L.A. and you're driving in your vehicle and the radio's on and you're stuck in traffic, which is virtually guaranteed all the time, Vin Scully, Vin Scully, Vin Scully. It was almost like a Chinese water torture with the voice of Vin Scully. And and I do have to say this, though, just listening to him broadcast and all that, he is literally one of the greats, kind of did it his way, totally, you knew immediately. There's never any question. Let's see, who's broadcasting this? Is it this guy or that guy? No, you knew damn well it was Vin Scully, And I think very a true original, and just did great at what he did, and all that. I'm proud to say I heard him during his heyday, and at the time I should have appreciated it a little more.
A few more minutes. The Pirate with us, head coach Mike Leach, Hail Varsity Radio, head coach Mississippi State. Managers are fun. The personalities, love Don Zimmer when he was with the Cubs. Always got a kick out of some of the clips of Earl Weaver. Coach, Earl Weaver got his money's worth all the time, didn't he? He was an artist of the F word.
Oh, they said he was the most profane one. So I've talked to these guys, and you would see like guys ignite like Billy Martin and Dick Williams, that were pretty explosive. But they said the wildest, most profane of all of them was Earl Weaver.
Earl was talented.
And to be honest, what I heard, and I wasn't there or anything, but his favorite word wasn't the F word. It was another one. There's a couple words that go beyond the F word.
Yes.
And he favored those.
Who's the most profane coach you've gone up against?
Well, there's days that I give them a run for their money, believe me. Profane coach.
Who's really good at swearing, Well,
some people just can't. Some people, it's too forced. I mean, swearing is like any other talent. It's like you develop the skills to do it, and some are more gifted than others. Like, for example, some will get the words out of order or backwards, or they just don't flow right, or their swearing feels really forced. But people that can really do it effectively, one, it's funny to hear, two, it's intense, and three, the words flow together. So, like a really good example of how to swear effectively, where it blends together and sounds nice. George C. Scott was great at it. Like, think about Patton.
Right.
George C. Scott and Patton, a master at swearing. I mean, really good. And so there's coaches that are able to get that direction, and then there's others where it's just all chopped up and all chopped up and forced, and those you almost wish they'd surrender and not desecrate the art of swearing. You know what I mean?
Well, Bo, from an intensity standpoint, I would think Bo would have rated the 8 or 9 out of 10.
He's good.
Yeah.
No, he's good. Like, I don't know him that well, but I was at spring meetings with him and all that. No, he held his own. He was definitely good.
We got to put a field of 64 bracket together with Coach Leach here when it comes to seeding the swearers in college football. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price. That means that you can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Mike Leach with us, coach at Mississippi State, the Pirate, joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, couple of minutes and we'll let you go, and we'll get back with you here closer to the season kicking off. One, when it comes to Nebraska beef, what are you drafting? Are you drafting New York strip, ribeye, T-bone, or filet?
Okay, say that. Okay, let's start again. So we got, what is it?
You got a New York strip, you got a ribeye, you got a T-bone, or you have a filet. I left the sirloin off.
I have to go the ribeye.
Okay.
The ribeye. I mean, there's those who would argue the New York strip or the filet if they're on their diet. But if you go all in on this thing, I mean, how do you beat a ribeye? I mean, ribeye is kind of the ultimate,
Lastly, what happens to Saul? Are you caught up? Better Call Saul.
Okay, no, I am not. And I was in the middle of it last night. I thought maybe I'd finish it. I still went to bed late, and honestly was going to go to bed even later to finish it off. I'm almost to the end of the second to the last episode.
Okay.
And I got the last episode sitting there. And what I've gotten preoccupied with, and I did finish, is Gaslight. And I thought it was very good.
Okay.
I thought it was very good. It was very accurate till the end. And see, when this is years ago, probably 20 years ago, but I've read about 5 books on Watergate, not on the various characters involved, and I've read their books. In a working knowledge of the characters in Watergate, I think is key. But I was pretty captivated by Gaslight. Ran it back a number of times. Would re-listen to stuff, how they put the words together, some things like that. But I thought they really did a good job. I think they missed some things in those docudramas. To me, they're always part reality, part documentary, part comic book, and part dark comedy or something like that. And it was all of that. It was good. And it was real accurate till the end when I think they needed to make the characters talk, so they kind of put them together. They made John Dean a lot more of a hero than he was. And then there's another sequence where they swapped one character out for another, but it might be the best dialogue of the whole show. Anyways, I thought it was good. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
And those that don't like it will be because they don't know the characters. So I would say familiarize even Wikipedia real quick, like with the characters. But I really recommend Gaslight, and it's has a lot of parallels with our government now. These guys that get a certain amount of power. First of all, you think they're really smart, which that's not true. And second of all, you think on some level they can be trusted because you're all fighting for the same thing, and that's absolutely not true because self-interest totally rules the day.
Coach, couple of episodes left for Better Call Saul. 2 weeks for the series finale, and we'll be in touch for that. Awesome to get caught up with. You always love spending the few minutes. Thanks for your time today.
All right. Well, great talking to you. Good to hear from you again.
It's a Pirate, Mike Leach. We covered it all. Vin Scully, the art of swearing, and how he would draft, what he would draft when it comes to Nebraska beef, and the ribeye wins the day.
Yeah, but thinking back to the art of swearing, that was something that, I never learned in art school growing up. Like, whenever they sent us off to art class, they always left the art of swearing off to the side. It was always like watercolor and colored pencils, and maybe I would have enjoyed art class a little more.
Well, Leach nailed it, and, a little bit of good insight on Bo. He's like, he holds his own. He's good. I would hope. No, good to hear from the Pirate. We'll have him on throughout the football season, and excited there. Join us if you like, and dial up at 466-377-6800, 825-5865, and give us a follow on the Hail Varsity Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio on Twitter. So Nebraska football has made Nebraska fans swear quite a bit the last several seasons. We get into confidence ranking. Good story from the World Herald and Sammy McEwen when it comes to ranking the confidence teams that Nebraska should have no problem with, and teams Nebraska may have a big problem with. And as I look at the ranking Nebraska's easiest to most difficult opponents, I personally, because of the context, because of the importance, because of the situation, Northwestern's got to be top 3, doesn't it? As far as most difficult, maybe not from a team standpoint or from a matchup standpoint, but for sure from a who you coaching against across the sideline.
That mental aspect.
Yeah, Fitzgerald's done more with less for a long time, and just most folks don't think he has 2 bad seasons in a row. He'll sneak in a 9 or 10 win season after a 3-9. So do they bounce back? And you have travel, you have potential distraction, you have pressure of getting off on the right foot. So to me, Northwestern, as I go reverse order from hardest to easiest, it's in that top 3 because of the magnitude of it. It's right there. from an opponent standpoint in the Big Ten and even non-conference, Oklahoma's in there. I don't disagree that there's a lot of transition and turnover, and how's Venables handle being the head dog. Listen, he'll continue to recruit. They'll be intense. They may be better defensively. They're also working with a transfer quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. Flipping through Phil Steele here a moment ago. Phil doesn't have too many first-team players for Oklahoma. I just think one lineman, you don't have anybody on defense. I think you got to go to third or fourth team before you start seeing what's been traditionally good for Oklahoma. And that's having a tackle or a center or a couple of members on the offensive line on the All Big 12 team. Same with their defense. They were loaded last year with their edge rushers and their interior. They're not poor. They're not going to be non-talented, but it's some guys you just don't know a lot about. They returned 15 starters a year ago. That isn't the case this year. But I think Gabriel can be a good fit for him, and it's going to be a war for Nebraska. So OU fits right in there. And Michigan on the road, whether they're built to last or they take a step back, that's a tough ball game in November. I'm torn between where I slot Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. Defensively, Iowa, hands down, is the leader in the clubhouse with one of the best defenses Nebraska will face all year. Offensively, Wisconsin has Allen, and they are just good at printing linemen, and it's going to be a phone booth ball game. And then there's Minnesota. Minnesota has the best quarterback Nebraska will see in Lincoln in the Big Ten. They've got to go to Purdue against O'Connell. But with Morgan coming back for a 78th season with his old OC, to me, that is, with quarterback, I've got to give Minnesota the edge over what Wisconsin and Iowa have at quarterback. So if I'm ranking, I think Iowa City's probably fourth right there. Going Oklahoma. I'm going Iowa. I'm going Northwestern. And then Wisconsin. You can pick apart my order, totally get it, but as we sit here August 3rd, my crazy screwed up math says that right now, because points are going to be at a premium for a lot of these games, but I think Nebraska, if it translates to the field and they get Northwestern handled, that's why it's top three for me. I think it opens the door for a lot of good things for the season. Doesn't guarantee a win against Oklahoma. Doesn't mean anything against a Wisconsin, Iowa, or Minnesota. But it can do wonders for between the ears. And I think that's as much of anything in the Big Ten.
Now, I like your take on Northwestern because there's also the added factor of a new offensive coordinator, mostly new offensive coaches, and the fact that offense is still more than likely going to be somewhat of a work in progress by the time Nebraska heads off to Dublin. You're not going to know exactly what it's going to look like, and the team's probably not going to know themselves what their true identity is. They can have a sense of it, but you're not going to know that just yet, and it might take a couple of games to finally get there. You're looking at maybe the Oklahoma game is the time where this Nebraska offense may come into its own and have its identity set for the year. So you're going to be working through that in Northwestern, or against Northwestern, I should say. And I like that take of that's what kind of brings that up into that level of potentially being a top 5 most difficult games for that reason. But I think the top of the list has got to be Michigan. Michigan's the most difficult opponent for Nebraska. They bring back talent. You saw what they did last season. They have a formula for success moving forward. Now, the only real question mark I have with Michigan is, are they going to keep that chip on their shoulder that they had last season? And that was brought forth by those leaders they had within the team, the Hutchinsons, the Ajabos, the Hassan Haskins. They all played like they had a giant chip on their shoulder all season long. And if Michigan can keep that chip on their shoulder and people still think, oh, you're the little dog against Ohio State in this conference, if they can carry that through an entire 2022 season, Michigan could repeat as Big Ten champions. I think they have enough talent to do that, despite the fact that everyone's picking Ohio State. But to me, it comes down to, does that chip on the shoulder remain?
Purdue, and they shouldn't be forgotten. That is your early pole position for the West, again, assuming everything falls right if you're a Nebraska fan in Dublin. But Purdue, I mean, those have been shootouts. And while Purdue probably has the second-best quarterback in the league, Nebraska's fared fairly well in West Lafayette. At least that's one of the few road wins Nebraska has. And it's always a matching of wits with Braum and Frost. Well, Frost will still be part of that equation, but you got Whipple v. Braum. And Purdue, I guess I'm not as high on them as sustaining because of what they lost with Karl Loftus, their wideouts.
David Bell.
Bell's gone. Now they raided Iowa. But we'll see. So Purdue's just a bit off the radar, but by October 15th, could totally be wrong on that. Working through a Wednesday at Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmidt on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday. Nebraska orthopedic Dr. Doug Davis with us. Dr. Doug, you ready for some two-a-days? You ready for football?
It's getting to be that time of year, Chris. It all makes you think back to your high school days. I'm not sure I liked it.
Well, some of us said, I'm good. we'll let the bigger guys go sweat and drink water and run the hill. I'll exit stage left. But a lot of excitement, a lot of energy from Denver fans, especially with Russ going there to play quarterback, and Nebraska fans excited about Randy Gregory in Denver. But one of the wideouts for Denver, Tim Patrick, suffering an ACL injury, tore that ACL on his right knee, out for the year. Dr. Doug, let's get into it. And these are going to be pretty common, unfortunately, at the college level, at the NFL level, at the high school level, when guys get out. And even if it's just a non-contact thing, it's something that's a reality on the football field.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of that classic example. You're in the middle of a practice situation, and you catch a ball and make a cut, to turn upfield, and boom, the leg goes. And there's a ton of these ACL injuries that are secondary to those non-contact injuries like this, and beginning to see more and more of it again.
Well, you had Patrick caught a pass during team drills on Tuesday, and then tried to turn, plant, get upfield, and his leg buckled, and he grabbed that right knee, fell to the ground. You got teammates and staff that are heartbroken for him. Let's talk about just the tear itself, where you guys come in with the repair and the rehab, and give me a thought just where you're at as a profession. 5 years now versus 5 years ago when it comes to ACL repair.
Yeah, so a lot of good thoughts there. The reality of it is that we've been dealing with ACL injuries all the way back. We just didn't treat them back in the Joe Namath days. It was that big old clunky brace, and then we get into the 80s and we start reconstructing them, meaning that we are putting in a new piece of tissue for the old ACL. And that's really what kind of turned the corner on being able to fix these things. But one of the bugaboos that we've always had has been the meniscal cartilages, because those get injured about 40% of the time on an initial ACL injury. And I think the biggest change that we've got in these last 5 years has been that we've got some new technologies available to us with our arthroscopic meniscal repairs, where we're able to do some meniscal repairs that we just weren't able to do years ago. The thought was that they would not heal, and that thought has been changing pretty dramatically. So it's not at all unusual for me to do a meniscal repair with my ACLs now, whereas in years past it was significantly less. Now, what's interesting about that is that the loss of the meniscus when there's an ACL tear is one of the highest predictors of difficulty for a player being able to come back and participate at a high level. So I think that it really is better right now than what it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago, primarily because of that.
Dr. Doug Davis with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, a Jock Doc Wednesday.
And Dr. Doug, you mentioned that meniscus being a big factor here. And does that change based on whether a knee injury is, say, contact or non-contact? I mean, it sounds like Tim Patrick's knee injury was going up for a deep ball, came down wrong on the knee, and something popped. But I think also back to a contact knee injury such as Willis McGahee back in the Fiesta Bowl way back when we took a shot in the knee went, and just a terrible recovery for him. Is there any difference between the contact and non-contact aspect of things from a doctor's point of view?
Yeah, I think there's a higher likelihood of a multiple ligament injury when we have the contact injury. And so like the medial collateral ligament and the ACL tearing. Well, when that happens, there's an increased degree of pressure against the meniscus on the outer aspect of the knee. And so those more violent injuries are likely to come up with a more dramatic tear of a meniscus, one that's harder to fix or not fixable. So, yes, I would say the contact injuries are just a bigger issue overall, and the meniscus being part of that.
Dr. Doug Davis with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, a Jock Doc Wednesday. A thought from you, Dr. Doug, on recovery and then the option here when it comes to the ligament, whether you go from your own tissue or you go an alternative route.
Yeah, the recent things that have been coming out have been ACL repair, where we don't put a new piece of tissue in there, but we put a sleeve around the existing tissue and then try to augment that with some biological augmentation to get it to heal. I think the jury's still out on that one. But as far as whether you use your own tissue or an allograft meaning somebody else's tissue, there's pretty significant evidence to say that your own tissue is better. And, we're talking about a 94-95% likelihood of being able to return to participation at that same level using your own tissue. And that drops down to 85 to 87% with a allograft. So the speed of recovery is better with allograft, but in the long run, for these guys that are making a living using their knees, I think that 7 to 10% difference is a significant issue.
Why is it quicker with someone else's tissue?
Yeah, because you're not recovering from the donor site. So either you're using your hamstring tendon or your patella tendon, and both of those require some time to heal up.
Sure.
And not having to have that, the initial phase of rehab is really noticeably different for the allograft patient.
Does age factor in at all with which knee operation you want to do here? Say whether a guy's a 10-year NFL veteran, say 32 years old, compared to, say, a 19-year-old college kid?
It doesn't really figure in for me very much with my athletic population. I'm almost certainly going to be using a hamstring or a patella tendon from that individual. When we get into a 45, 55-year-old farmer or a recreational skier or something like that, I'll start thinking about using allografts in that situation. But for my athletic population that is either still in school or trying to make a living, with athletics, or just playing at a really high level. I think the percentages and the odds favor using your own tissue.
Dr. Doug Tavis with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, talking ACL and injury to the top touchdown man for Denver last year. Dr. Doug, getting cranked up for football. We'll talk again next week. Thanks for a few minutes today.
You bet. I hope it goes well for him.
Like what you hear, high-quality radio and podcast, just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, midweek edition, Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Put it down in your calendar, 4 to 6, Hail Varsity Club this Friday. Getting the weekend kicked off the right way. Come see us. Plenty of food and drink specials, some special guests on hand, and on the StreamYard. So we'll get more thoughts on Nebraska football. Big thanks to Mike Babcock and the Pirate Mike Leach for joining us today. Mike Shoehart as well. Tomorrow on the show, we'll spend time with Brandon Vogel from Hail Varsity. Grant Wistrom, great Husker, great NFLer. G-Dub, number 98, will join us. And also the coach, Gary Barnett. So loaded up for tomorrow. And just getting you a heads up as well. Following us in Omaha, of course, Sports Nightly, Greg and company. Brock Bando, buddy of yours, Elijah, teammate of yours, going to be on their show tonight. And Kevin Suitsy back from Chicago for Big Ten Media Days for volleyball. And so Suitsy will check in on Sports Nightly. So give that a listen to our friends up in Omaha. And, lining up, plenty more to come. And been a part of this group text with Kranak and his crew that's going over to Ireland with us. And the itinerary's fantastic. Now, I did take notes from Coach Leach earlier about the Blarney Stone. But he high-fived it versus giving it a smooch. I don't know if we're going to the Blarney Stone or not.
See, I've heard conflicting reports. Some people will say it gives you the gift of the gab, lets you really be a flirt, I guess, in some senses. And other people say, well, kiss the stone, it gives you good luck. I've heard both, and I'm not sure which is true. Maybe both can be true. But
okay.
I don't think you need any more of the gift of the gab. I think you got that down.
Or the luck. Right? Or the luck part of the equation. So that is interesting, but there's scouting to be done with the different pubs, that's for sure, and we're all about that. But be sure to get the podcast. Find us, Hail Varsity Radio. Give us a rating, good, bad, or ugly. 1,000% happy to take the feedback. And find the show, Hail Varsity Radio Podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, part of the Hurrdat family of podcasts. So get your emails in and response to the confidence ranking, worst to first, toughest to easiest on Nebraska's schedule. We tackled that a little bit earlier. Also dove in on the heels of some of the win total, the Reddit poll out there for Nebraska, percentages attached for sure to who a lot of the Husker fans that took part in this poll feel best about, and it's quite a division versus the teams you're supposed to beat versus the coin flip / toss-up ball games. And so we hit on that on today's show. Vogel, Grant Wistrom, Coach Barnett, Check out the podcast also, Coach Leach, the full interview, ESPN Lincoln's On Demand.
Yeah, and hoping to get that Leach interview up in video form on YouTube tonight as well, so you can check that out if you prefer the video form of things.
All right, back at it tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in to Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
A Hurrdat Media Production.